Speaking of leadership and management, we touched a little bit on it earlier. I'd love to expand on it. How leadership and management relate to one another in an effective way. What's the best way to foster that and maintain that, since they're coming from different perspectives oftentimes?
First of all, we have to recognize it's not an either or. One of the unfortunate things that happened in the 1990s, when suddenly there was an explosion of books on leadership, is that some of those books sort of left you thinking at the end that leadership is the real thing. Management is old school. That's the old stuff. The fact of the matter is, there is a management component to leadership. I said it's the art of rallying people around a shared purpose and then motivating them and mobilizing them to achieve it. When it comes to the mobilization moment, there's a huge management function to be fulfilled there. And if the leader is not someone who's good at management, that's where these number two people, that's where you build a team around you that's good at the implementation, while you continue to motivate people and rally people to the cause that you're trying to advance. Now, in that world, where leaders and managers are working alongside one another, I think it was counterproductive in the 90s when certain books seemed to be dismissive of management. Fortunately, people realized that mistake pretty quickly, and we've come back to a more balanced view of things. And the way that I try to get people to understand that balance is by using the analogy of riding a bicycle. There are two pedals on a bike. At one moment, one pedal is carrying the load, at another moment, the other pedal is carrying the load. And the art of riding the bike well is knowing when each pedal needs to be carrying the load. In management and leadership, there are times in an organization in which leadership needs to be at the fore. There are other times that management needs to be at the fore. That can be determined by a lot of different things. One has to do with the industry. I'll give you a good example. Burlington Northern Santa Fe, one of my largest clients for many, many years, has as their core orchestrating ideology what they call a leadership model. There are 5 elements of that model. And they have to do with leading more, managing less, casting a compelling vision, modeling the way, communicate, and develop your people. Those are the 5 elements of the leadership model. And so they attract a lot of people, particularly when they're recruiting C-level executives and upper tier management, a lot of people who are attracted to the leadership model. But as I coached some of those people after they came into the organization, what they didn't take into account is, no matter how much BNSF focuses on leadership, it has to be a management-dominated company, because there are hundreds of trains to put together every day to run through thousands of jurisdictions, each one with its own local rules as to what you can and cannot do. It will literally come off the rails if it's not well managed. So there are some companies, airline industries are one, others that because they are so regulated, management must be very prominent. And yet there are times when an airline has to make a turnaround, that leadership needs to be at the fore, because we've got to come up with a new sense of who we are, finding a way to connect with a new customer base. All the things that go into the turnaround experience are really leadership's function, not so much management's function. Another thing is where we are in the state of an economy. During the pandemic, management had to play a much larger role because everything was in decline, and we were needing to conserve resources. We were needing to maximize the people that we could tap into to work. Everywhere you turned, there was a management challenge. Now, when we start coming out of it, and there are customers to be reclaimed, and there are markets to be penetrated for the first time, leadership needs to come to the fore. So it's a complementary working relationship between leadership and management. And the skill is knowing when to put on the management sombrero, when to put on the leadership sombrero, and what you're doing differently based on the sombrero that you're wearing.